Hey everybody, I'm ZeldaMaster, and in this video I ask you a question. Have you ever imagined a game similar to Breath of the Wild, but with other RPG elements mixed in it, and anime girls with big titties? Well, imagine no further, because that game is reality with Genshin Impact. Yeah, so in this video I want to talk about this Chinese ripoff to Breath of the Wild known as Genshin Impact. Now, I haven't really heard about this game until recently, as I'm currently visiting Taiwan for my fiance, and I've been seeing a lot of ads about this game. And after looking further into it, I've noticed that this game takes a lot of inspiration from Breath of the Wild, to the point where it seems like it's just copying it without really trying anything new. Obviously, the game does have a lot of original things to it, but regardless, I'm not the only one who sees this game copying Breath of the Wild, as I've seen a lot of videos covered in Chinese about how this game is very similar to the Breath of the Wild. There was even someone who, at a convention showcasing this game, smashed their own PlayStation 4 just out of rage because this game is copying Breath of the Wild, which I find a bit ridiculous, because for me, even though I'm a huge Zelda fan, if I see any game company copying Zelda, I get excited, I want to play it, even if it's something shamelessly like this, where they're straight up copying it without necessarily just taking inspiration. But for me, it's like more the merrier. I want to play any Zelda game, even though we're not going to be playing as Link, but anime girls, you know, I'll take it. I'm not really a fan of that, you know, I'd rather play as Link or something like that, but luckily you can choose the main character's gender at the beginning of the game, even though most of your teammates seem to be anime girls. It's whatever, I'm looking forward to it regardless, as it's a huge open world that takes so much inspiration from Breath of the Wild, and let me get into exactly what I mean by that. So obviously, like I just said, the game will be open world, but not just open world, open air. What I mean by that is you'll be able to travel through the sky with a glider. Yes, you can actually use a glider within this game, very similar to Link, and you can glide to certain areas, as you can pretty much climb everything within the game, similar to Breath of the Wild as well, because the character can climb whatever they see, very similar to Breath of the Wild. It looks a lot more clunkier and not as good, obviously, as it is a ripoff, but still, it is kind of interesting to see, but you can clearly tell that it's a straight copy. They're not really coming up with anything original in that sense. The world is also all cel shaded in terms of the graphics, which fits the anime style, but there are some points within the game that actually looks exactly like Breath of the Wild because of the grass and everything. Along with that, in terms of HP and restoring it, it will be found through cooking and finding materials and literally cooking your own food, very similar to Breath of the Wild. Even when upgrading your stats, you have to go to a prayer-like statue and pray. Very similar to how the goddess statues work in Breath of the Wild, and these statues seem to also act like Sheikah towers from Breath of the Wild, as they fill up your map with information of that area. And on top of that, there's even mini dungeons you can find throughout this world that act as shrines, as you have to reach the end of it, and the way they look are very similar to how shrines look. And by reaching the end of it, you get a reward, and then it teleports you outside of that area. Even the loading screen has a similar Breath of the Wild vibe. The whole world is all empty and it kind of feels like that Breath of the Wild feel, but granted, it is much nicer to look at, as it's not in a post-apocalyptic setting. You can actually enter towns and kingdoms that seem to be completely built with people, so that will be something exciting to kind of explore, as Breath of the Wild doesn't necessarily have that. Overall, I'm one, like I said, for you know, when it comes to new Zelda-like games, I'm excited to try them out. Regardless if they're good or bad, I just want to get that Zelda feel with most games. So for me, I'm excited to play this game nonetheless. But when you really look at all the similarities, there's even more, as the game also, when you play throughout the overworld, you'll hear very subtle music that seems to be copying Breath of the Wild. There are even enemy camps and enemy designs that look exactly like Breath of the Wild's, and when you do kill a full enemy camp and everyone in it, it will actually spawn a chest, or have the chest be able to be picked up, very similar to how Breath of the Wild works. So many things about this game is just straight up copying it, and the fact that you can literally climb anything and glide anywhere and just have all of these similarities, it's stuff games have never done until Breath of the Wild. So now we're seeing kind of like Breath of the Wild set a standard for open world, and there'll be knockoffs to these games, and I don't care. I want that. I hope more game companies do this and take inspiration from Breath of the Wild. Maybe not as shamelessly as this one, like take Breath of the Wild and just put anime girls. I think that's a bit too much, but I'm still gonna get the game and play it. Now, as I mentioned, someone destroyed their PS4 out of rage for this game because this game will be coming out on PS4 and mobile devices, because I believe the company that is making this game is known for making mobile games. So I'm kind of excited to try it out on both. I'm not entirely sure if you're gonna have to pay for it. I'm hoping it's like free to play, but I doubt it. Regardless, it does look interesting. The game is not out yet. It will be out, I believe, somewhere in 2020, but when you do look at it, it's obviously just taking the gameplay aspects of Breath of the Wild and then adding its own concept, as when you do look at the combat, a lot of it seems to be more inspired from other RPG games instead of Breath of the Wild. And in terms of characters, you're not only playing as like one character, you get to play as a set of characters, so a bunch of anime girls you can swap between, similar to JRPGs. I do believe one of the teammates is a guy. I'm probably going to be playing as him mainly, but I have a feeling each character has their own importance and you're going to have to use them to solve certain puzzles and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to see how this game overall is in terms of gameplay and puzzles and everything there is. I'm not necessarily looking forward to the story so much, but speaking of story, the game does have a similar, somewhat opening to how Breath of the Wild works, at least down to how your character awakens, because your character literally opens their eyes like how Link opens their eyes in Breath of the Wild, but instead of seeing blue light inside the Shrine of Resurrection, it sees a fairy, and I feel like that's, you know, inspiration from other Zelda games, you know, a fairy waking up Link. But in terms of the story has been revealed to us, and I had my fiance help me translate it, as she does speak Chinese. So from what we've gotten from the story is that the story is of a blue like dragon creature who came to this human world that we are in, and it doesn't really understand the humans. But there was a young boy who is known to be the guardian of the winds and had a harp that helped communicate with the dragon and taught him about the humans. But like every story, things don't remain good for long, so a dark version of this dragon appeared and battled the blue dragon. And throughout the battle, all the damages the blue dragon faced, it put him in a long slumber, similar to kind of how Link was, you could say. And then after the creature woke up, after many years, it realized all the humans forgot about him, so he became enraged, and then I guess that's where the dragon becomes evil, or we're gonna have the dragon understand us again, this blue dragon, as you can see eventually that you take on the blue dragon, or you try to, you know, seize it or calm it down, as there is a air section where you have to kind of shoot it down, and that's where it's a bit different than Breath of the Wild. It's more like a air shooter, but you'll see in other parts with the glider, it's the same thing with how Breath of the Wild works in the open air travel, where how you can kind of just jump off of areas and kind of just use your glider, and the stamina will slowly deplete. One thing that's also very Breath of the Wild-esque is just the fact that how you farm for things, from picking up items to even how they glow from far away. They have that little, sparkle effect that Nintendo said they needed to put in Breath of the Wild, and kind of base the cell shading around that so you can find items much easier. So that's something the game also has. On top of it, it's even down to taking down trees and picking up material. That's something that just felt kind of different in open world RPGs. You know, that kind of reminded me of Minecraft when I first tried it in Breath of the Wild. So it was much more unique to see it in a game like that. And now obviously this game is just taking it like it's a standard in all games, when clearly it's something Breath of the Wild kind of originated. So yeah, there are so many things that Breath of the Wild kind of started, and I feel like RPGs are going to be copying it in that sense. And again, I'm not complaining. I kind of want to make this video to see what you guys think of a game like this. Like, I know some people might really like it just because the fact that they made it, more anime-esque. I'm not a fan of that personally. That kind of ruins it for me, but I don't care. Gameplay is more important to me, so if the gameplay has something to offer, I'm going to play it. But obviously there are other people who, may not want to see games copy Nintendo or anything like that, or just see it in a shameless way. And obviously this game is doing it shamelessly with how they're blatantly copying it, acting like Breath of the Wild never existed, and how this game might be the first, or acting like Breath of the Wild is a standard of video games and how it's normal to copy it. But obviously that isn't the case. It is nice though to see other RPG elements with the character swapping, with other attacks and things like that. Overall, it just reminds me of other JRPGs. Even the menu surprisingly reminds me a lot of Ni no Kuni, but there's also a separate menu. So there's like the team menu where you can see your characters. That reminds me of like a JRPG, or like, games like Ni no Kuni with its menu. But there are also like the normal menu where you can see your food and other stats and stuff, and that looks exactly like Breath of the Wild. So there's so many similarities to Breath of the Wild. It is ridiculous, but again, I like it. I'm excited. I'm probably going to make a video on it when the video game is released, the video game that is, and there will be a video about it from me. I'll definitely be looking further into it. Maybe I'll play it for the channel. We'll see. I believe it will be revealed worldwide on the same day. I hope so. If it is not, and it's only like for certain regions, I'll wait until it's in English, and I'll definitely be able to play it and try it out for you guys. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like games inspired from Zelda? Obviously I had a series known as Zelda-like, where I would show other games that were heavily inspired from The Legend of Zelda, and they were really fun to play, but none of them really went this far where it's kind of like just straight up copying it. There's a lot of games like this. This is not the first one, and it is weird to see the rage, because there's so many games that copy many game companies, including Nintendo, and no one really seems to care. But this one seems to be getting a lot of buzz for Breath of the Wild, and I understand it's because maybe Nintendo made something very unique, and this is the first company to do a game like that. So seeing any game similar to it, it's obvious that it isn't a coincidence. It's blatant copying, but I don't see a point in getting upset. If anything, I hope this kind of encourages Nintendo to show that they make the right and better thing and continue making stuff like this. I would love to see, other big main game companies take inspiration from Breath of the Wild, maybe not in a shameless way, but take certain aspects and incorporate it into their game and give us something that is grand and open world, because I want to see more open worlds that are on the scale to Breath of the Wild, where you can literally explore everything and anything. But anyways, yeah, that about does it for this video. Let me know what you think of Genshin Impact, and if you'll be getting it on release because of this video. I just thought I'd shine some light on this game, show off some gameplay, and just kind of some comparison, because again, to me this looks very interesting regardless, because I mean, it looks like a high budget rip-off of Breath of the Wild, and to me, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this game, and overall what you think of other Zelda-like games or Zelda ripoffs. I'd love to know in the comments below. But anyways, as always, I've been ZeldaMaster. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!